Today I'm going to show you how I built this really cool desk. Stay tuned to find out. Okay, the first thing you're going to want to do is pick your best 5 boards and lay them out on the ground. As always, safety first. Here I am just squaring up one edge of each board so that we can have a reference to measure from. Make sure that if you are cutting a board that is really close to your fingers, you use a push stick or something like I did here to keep your fingers from getting cut by the blade. The next thing you're going to want to do is on your boards that is going to be the desktop, make a cut at 5 foot on all of those and try and get them as close to the same as you can so it will line up easier later. Now that you have all 5 of your boards cut at 5 feet, you're going to want to head over to the table saw and trim off just a little bit on one of the edges to square it up a little bit, and then we are going to flip them over later to cut them all down to their final size. And I'm sure some of you guys are asking yourself, why is he using the blade guard on the table saw? Yes, I do use it whenever I can because I feel that if you can make a cut safely with it on, it should stay on there just in case you drop a piece of wood on it on the blade or you run your fingers in there, you have that guard there to protect you. While we're squaring up these boards, why don't we go ahead and talk about the sponsor of today's video, which is myself. If you want to help me out here, head on over to my website and check out some of the stuff that I make. And I sell some of these things too. I'm selling some stuff to save up for a car and anything that I can, or if you have any other ideas that you want me to build, just head on over to my website, send me an email or a text. Now that we have one edge of each board squared up, you want to take that edge that we just squared up and run that edge up against the fence of your table saw. You're going to want to cut these boards at 5 inches, except for the 5th one, you're going to want to cut at 3 inches. If you take a look at this clip here, you're going to see that I had some trouble pushing it through the saw. There were some knots and some just bad spots in the wood that was trying to pinch together, but luckily I had my riving knife in place, so there was no chance of kickback. It wasn't that bad. If you do not feel comfortable making a cut with a little bit of pressure on the wood, just don't do it. But it was not so tight that I didn't feel comfortable, so I just went ahead and proceeded with the cut. I'm not going to bore you with all of these cuts, so I'm just going to go ahead and proceed to the next step. If you look here at this board, I cut it 3 inches. There was a pretty bad bow in it, but what's a woodworking project without a problem? The bow shouldn't be a super big deal because, as you see in this next step, I am marking the holes where I want to drill the pocket holes for the screws, and those pocket holes will pull that bow in towards the board and it will flatten it out and make everything good. As you can see here, the pocket holes are alternated from each board in different spots. This is so the screws will pull the boards together evenly and it will keep it from bowing over time. Next, I took out my DIY pocket hole jig and I drilled the pocket holes in each board. I'm not going to show you me drilling all the holes because that is pretty boring, but here are some of the holes that I drilled in one of the boards. As you can see here in this clip, you can see all the pocket holes and where they are going to be screwed together. I'm gonna show you me attaching one of the boards to another board. The first thing you're going to want to do is put a bead of glue across one of the boards and spread it out evenly. That way you can get a pretty good coat and it will stick to the other board really well. Now that you have the boards together and ready to screw them in, you're going to want to use a speed square or a square to hold the boards flush together so they do not have a big lip or anything in them. You're going to want to proceed by doing this with the rest of the holes on every single board and put the whole top together. Also make sure you are using a regular drill on a low setting on the low speed. You do not want to be using an impact driver for pocket holes. It could potentially split the wood and you do not want that. The next thing you're going to want to do to the top once you get it all put together is sand it down really smooth. You really want to focus on those seams in case they're uneven or they need a little bit of work. I started with a very medium grit. I started with 120. It's still a pretty smooth grit, but it has a little bit of leeway so that you can really take down some of the rough parts and some of the lips if you have any in your board. It works really well for this part, and after this you're going to want to move to a higher grit. And again guys, make sure you're being safe. Make sure you have on your mask and your eye protection. I also wear ear protection to protect my ears too, but you really want a mask when you're sanding. It's going to leave really small particles into the air and you do not want to be breathing it in. So it's best if you can wear a mask to kind of keep that out of your lungs. You're going to want to get out your router and put a 1/4 inch round over bit. If you notice there, I did not have a base plate because this is a very old router and I just do not have that to it because somebody gave this to me. And you will see how that is an issue down the road. We're going to run into another problem yet again. Here's where you're going to see our next problem. Since I did not have that base plate, I accidentally leaned over and made this big hole. I'm going to do my best to try and fix this, so I took some sawdust from my sander and I put it in a little disposable cup, and I'm going to be adding glue to it until it gets to the right thickness that I like, and stir it around with a dowel or something, and then I'm going to try and fill in that hole. This got a little bit too liquidy, but I think it'll still work. But I'm gonna head over to that hole and try and fill it in with some of this putty, and I'm just gonna have to let it dry and hope that it works. Next, you're going to want to make the 2x2 legs. Here you can see that instead of me just buying 2x2s, I am laminating 2 boards together, and I'm going to cut them into 2x2s once these boards get glued together and dry. Once you get the glue on the boards, you want to take a paint scraper or a credit card or anything just to smooth out that glue and just spread it out all over the board evenly so that every inch of the board is covered with glue. If you look here, you can see that I'm putting clamps across the middle of the boards. These clamps are just to hold the boards as flush as I can, while I am getting all of the other clamps, and here I have to take out every single one of my clamps because I do not have that many. The next step is cutting all of your supports, the rails that run across the front and the back and the sides. You're going to want to cut all these right now and get them ready for the next step. Now you're going to cut the shorter pieces, and I will have all the measurements for this project in the description below if you would like to check them out. Now you want to take all of those rails that you just cut and cut them down to their final dimension, which is 4.5 inches. This is going to be a 1x5 also if you do not have a table saw and you are just buying the lumber from the store. Now you want to put pocket holes in each end of the rails. For the shorter ones, you can use the pocket hole jig with the stand, and for the longer ones, you're going to want to use just a pocket hole jig that will sit on the end of the board. As you can see here, this is the kind of jig you're going to want to use on the longer boards, and you want to do this on each side of the longer boards on both of them. Now I am getting a square edge on one side of the boards that I glued up to run across the fence, so I will have perfectly square legs. Now I am ripping the boards down into 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch legs, and after you get all of these ripped down, you're going to want to sand these before you put the whole table together. Now that all of the parts are separate and not put together, you're going to want to sand all these down now. Take advantage of it. It'll be way harder to sand it down once everything is put together. This is really where it all starts to come together. If you see, I have a 1/2 inch spacer under each side, and now you want to use pocket holes and join both of these legs and the boards together on both sides, and you want to do 2 sets of these. This is where it could get a little bit tricky if you're by yourself. You want to take both of those sets that you join to the legs and put a board in between them. I used a clamp to hold it up, but if you have somebody else to help you, that would be easier, but make sure you have that 1/2 inch spacing coming in around the sides. Now I cut out some supports to go in the middle of these. You want to cut these to the exact size. I put them 5 inches from each side and 1 right in the middle. These pocket holes around the side is to secure the top to the base. The rest of this is just personal preference. Now I am painting, finishing, and whatever you want, so you can just choose whatever colors you want to do from here on out. Now you want to measure and get that 1 inch overhang on all the sides. Once you have that, then you can start putting in the screws and assemble the whole desk together. Thank you for watching this video. If you want to build this desk yourself, check out the description down below for all of the measurements and all of the sizes. And if you would like to order a desk or anything else, go check out my website, which is also in the description down below. Thank you for watching. See you later.